and welcome to the Datamaran podcast series, where we're engaging with thought leaders from business, academia, policymakers to talk about how the future of work is more digital and more connected than ever. Today, I'm delighted to have with me Richard Batten, who is the Global Chief Sustainability Officer at JLL. Thank you for joining us, Richard.
Well, thank you, Suzanne. Thank you for inviting me on.
Before we dive in, could you just tell us a little bit about your role at JLL and why JLL is reimagining the future of work right now?
Okay. Well, first of all, JLL is a real estate company, 400 offices in 40 countries around the world, advising clients on all aspects of their property, be it residential, be it commercial, or even just plain infrastructure. As a result of that, and particularly as a result of the built estate being responsible for 40% of all carbon emissions in the world today, we have potentially a massive impact on changing the world, shaping the world for tomorrow. And so as part of that influence on the carbon piece, we can come on to that later if you like. The workspace itself is actually core to what we do, and we are in a particular time. We were already reimagining the future of work before any virus came along, because that is our role, to be looking forward. But what's happening now has just accelerated everything, so that we are now today reimagining what that workplace should look like for when you and everybody looking at this is going to be moving back. And we've got the experience now of moving back into the workplace. We're seeing it in China. A Hong Kong office reopened on Monday. So we have real life experience of this move back to the workplace and the type of space that we should be providing. Okay.
Absolutely. We are in unusual times, unprecedented times, as you indicate. And there are definitely challenges, but also opportunities in terms of what we have in front of us. And to your point, it's fascinating that you are now in the UK, I'm in New York, but you already have colleagues moving back in Asia. So how are you currently at JLL handling and balancing the current challenges and opportunities that the crisis presents?
The first point I would say is that, unlike my children's schooling, the technology that JLL has been incredibly resilient. We have all moved into home working, many who had not had a huge amount of experience previously, myself included. And it has been pretty seamless, that shift over to home work, because the technology has been so good and our platforms have been so strong. I have to say, if there's any issues out there, it's more to do with bandwidth. And that's particularly the case we notice in Europe when the US start going to work in our midday time, because that's when things like WebEx, Zoom, and everything else starts slowing up a bit. But that apart, within the workplace, there was a big shock as people were moved out of offices, as offices were closed up. I suppose the health and safety of our people was the most important thing that we were concerned with, together with the ongoing work of our clients, because at times like these, we are obviously seeing a lot of transactional work slowing down at best, disappearing at worst. But there's still ongoing work with all of our clients, and loads of good stories about the sort of work we're doing. We've Delta Airlines in Atlanta wanted 305 new workstations. We, over the period of a couple of days, we totally transformed a hangar and put in 305 workstations with all the support piece around it into the hangar. and bizarrely, a plane is in the photographs. A plane so we built them around a plane that seemed to be in the hangar as well. Whether it could move or not, I don't know. Or in India, there's a great story of how one of our clients is an IT consultant, and it was a quasi help desk. The buildings got locked down, so we had to create home working facilities for 350 IT consultants. And we did that. We had to supply them with the equipment to work from home, and they were scattered all over India. So there's many of these ongoing work stories, but this was just the immediate response to the shock, if you like, the initial reaction. Since then, there has begun a normalcy, and we're calling this reimagining the future of work. We are now looking at how we put people back into the office. And there's quite a lot of aspects that we are looking at there that take us from the most common client questions of us at the moment are, how can we create this? What is the strategy for going back into the place? What are the health and safety protocols? And that is what our clients were all looking for, getting back into the workplace. And there's work engaged there, which is good.
That's great to hear. And to your point about health and safety, that's just one component of broader corporate sustainability strategies and the significance of ESG issues. I'm curious if you see this crisis shedding a new light or a greater significance on the role of corporate sustainability strategies.
There are two thoughts out there. One is that the issues today are so large that sustainability is going to be put on the back burner. It's probably what happened in the global crisis back in 2008-09, where sustainability strategies were deferred. I actually am of the belief that the impact of climate change on us is so great potentially that we cannot let that happen. And some of the benefits of what we're going through now is that we are dealing with what's in front of us. We will get through this, and as a result, we are far better prepared, or will be better prepared, to deal with these even greater issues that will be facing us down the road. Perhaps this is a dress rehearsal for dealing with them and how we cope. There are some benefits when we start looking at the carbon emissions that have been dropping. You can see any number of statistics around how the world is benefiting. Without a doubt, there will be as China's going back to it, we're already seeing their emission build up. But will it get back to where it was? I actually think when we look at the future of work, will we, and we can ask every individual, have their view on this, but will they now have more confidence in being able to work from home? Will leaders and managers have more trust in their workforce and be more accommodating? And I think the workforce as a whole is repaying that trust at the moment by if anything, working longer hours, not shorter hours. There are health and welfare issues around that when we are rolling out health and welfare, a well-being app called Headspace, which is very much trying to deal with mental health issues to all of our staff. And that's in the process of being rolled out. So I think we need to be aware to accommodate this sort of working under these conditions and stress. But as long as we're trying to address those issues, then as we do return, we're looking within JLL at who actually needs to be back. in the first phase of return, because there will be social distancing going on. So we're all in pods, but not every seat's going to be taken up as we go back. And there is a prioritization that we've created for all of our staff to go back. And the same is happening with our clients as well.
Mm. And to your point about, thinking about both the short and long term, that's what sustainability experts, ESG experts do really well, because we have to really think about these systemic issues that have impacts both in the short and long term. And thinking about that, you spoke about carbon emissions. Yesterday, JLL made bold announcements about your science-based targets to cut carbon emissions. And there's a quote from your CEO, Christian Ulbrich, where he says, as the world navigates the coronavirus pandemic, responding to immediate needs and mapping a path to recovery, it is vital we also maintain focus on the long-term global risks posed by climate change. So I'm curious if you can just speak a bit to that and why it's important for JLL to commit to these ambitious science-based targets.
Well, first of all, thank you for giving me an intro to our news of yesterday, where we announced our adoption of a science-based target for carbon emissions. And it is fantastic to have the support of our global executive board, and especially our CEO, supporting the initiatives that we're taking. Science-based targets for us, it means a 70% reduction in our carbon emissions by 2034. And we'll do that by moving our vehicle fleets over to electric vehicles, and the plans are in place for that. Moving on to renewable energy where we can around the world globally, as well as operational improvements to our buildings, sensors, lights, heating, more efficient use of what we're doing. And then variations of renewable energy certificates. But a combination of those four will take us to that 70% reduction. And that program is being kicked off. There's some capital investment which is planned, but this program pays back positively. And we will be making a double-digit IRR return on this. So it's not easy to say we shouldn't be going down this route, because we're making a profit out of it. So it's an obvious thing for us to do. It should be an obvious thing for others to do. But I was talking about the improvements we're going to do for ourselves, but within science-based targets, the scope 1 and scope 2 emissions that I referred to, there is also a scope 3 target. And in our case, we manage on behalf of our clients sort of 1,500 times the amount of space for them that we ourselves occupy. We're 95,000 people, so we occupy quite a bit of space, but we manage 1,500 times that amount. And part of the science-based targets is a commitment to help them reduce their emissions too. And if you could think of the leverage in terms of the amount of carbon reduction that we could influence is very significant, far more than just within our own buildings ourselves.
That's fantastic. And it reinforces the point of having really a value chain perspective when you're thinking about these types of issues. One point you brought up at the very beginning of our conversation, and that you reinforced just now, is the role of technology and digital solutions. And I'm wondering if we can just unpack this a little bit. You recently wrote actually 2 articles on LinkedIn, one about using technology to develop smart buildings, and one about how the current crisis presents an opportunity for corporations to collaborate on climate action.
Yep.
In this, you talk about the need for business really to invest time, resources, and capital in smarter ways of working. You've already talked about how JLL is doing that, But I'm wondering if you could just tell us a little bit more about how you are using technology and digital solutions to scale up your ability to prepare for, what's happening in the current crisis, but also the future of work.
That's a good point. You quoted Christian Ulbricht, our CEO. Previously, and this is going to be about 8 years ago, he was CEO of our EMEA region at the time, so Europe and Middle East and Africa. And we were at a conference in Amsterdam, of all places, and he made a comment that he didn't want us to be a real estate company that used technology. He wanted us to be a technology company that specialized in real estate. And I think that was sort of groundbreaking, because a few years after that, he then went to become our global CEO, and he took that sort of messaging with him. So this whole technology piece is part and parcel of who we are, and part and parcel of, I think, how we all will need to be operating going forward. We have a technology arm, the same as any other company around, but not every company will have two from our technology team sitting on our main global executive board. And that is how significant technology is to us. If we have a problem, then technology is always looked at as being the first port of call to provide the solution. And so we are not afraid of investing in new systems. In a global company like ours, like many other global companies, it is technology that pulls us together, whether it's finance or people systems, or and there's a raft of platforms out there. When we were looking at science-based targets, the first thing we did was to look, where can technology help us? And the first thing we did was sort out the data platform. We can't move anywhere, we said, and we can't, until we sorted that out. Datamaran, of course, we use. And we're very thankful for it, because you can save us time, energy, and also people. Properties, a lot of properties are held on leases. It is very time consuming reading leases, but AI can now do it for us. And so there are lease abstraction systems out there that we rely upon. And so where there is a technological solution, we'll look for it. We're also, as a company, investing in technology. So we have JLL Spark, which sits over in San Jose, and their job is to look for digital startups. And so we're looking, and we will take a position within them. So we're investors in PropTech, and we are now investors in green PropTech, because we're setting up within that. So we made a reasonable investment in a software motor company, SMC is what it's called. And what they do is put software alongside motors that drive air conditioning units. Not the sexiest subject for everybody, but this software reduces the power expenditure by 50%. Which therefore, and these are all of the air conditioning units that sit on top of shopping malls, office buildings, wherever. But if you can reduce the power required, the energy required, you're not only reducing emissions, and the figure is 50%. You're not only reducing the emissions by 50%, but you're reducing, so that's carbon benefits, but you're reducing the cost by 50%. So again, it's a bit like science-based targets. You can win by adopting these strategies.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate the point you made about investing and not being afraid to invest, because there might be a sort of change management that takes place when you make that investment. It's an adaptation, but it's a very necessary adaptation because of the benefits you mentioned in the short and long term: efficiencies operationally, cost, information accessibility and reliability. scalability in terms of decision making, you know, the speed at which you can make decisions now to have information accessible to you. And the energy efficiencies, of course, I didn't mention that on the efficiency piece, but it's important, and it's great to see that you're willing, that JLL is willing to make that investment.
Well, it's sort of over the years now, it's been embedded in the sort of DNA, in the same way as sustainability. If there are two things that are going to drive this company, technology is one, sustainability is the other. You're in a fortunate position of sitting in between the two, so you're very well positioned going forward. So, but that is where our CEO is trying to drive the ethos of the company, of how we operate, technology driven, underlain by sustainable principles. And there is hope that, well, I say there's hope, that there are various people who still do not believe in science, but one thing out of the virus at the moment is that science is beginning to be trusted, and as a result of the health issues. And if science can be trusted there, hopefully there'll be more trust in science when we start looking at climate as well. And therefore more people are prepared to react and respond in the right way.
Absolutely. Thank you for reinforcing the science element. That's a key component of what drives sustainability. That's a key component of what drives technology and science. And it's important that we celebrate that, especially now in our current unusual times.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Richard, for taking the time to connect with us. Really appreciate the work that JLL is doing to reimagine the future of work for me, but also for my baby girl, who you probably heard in the background during our conversation. If there's a final point, you know, to sum up the many different talking points that we've discussed today, is there a single call to action, something that you've yet to say that you'd like to repeat?
Yeah. Well, I think the easy way forward is to try to recreate where we were, and where we were only weeks ago, it seems. But that would be the worst thing possible, I think. It doesn't work. It's been proved to not work. We have an opportunity now to reimagine how this world should be. We've already said we have greater issues than the virus, even though it might be difficult to believe that, down the line from the issues of climate change. So let's reimagine how that world might be, and let's really use our efforts to reshape. Let's reshape for a better world going forward. And
Brilliant.
On that note.
Well, that's a great call to action. We have a unique opportunity to do that. And we are at Datamaran are thrilled that we can support you in a small way as part of that journey, and look forward to our continued collaboration.
I look forward to that as well. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.